So as we head into yet another international break, I thought now would be a good time to take a look at the Bookies' updated championship predictions. We'll get a feel for how the Bookies are ranking every championship side right now, how likely they are to be promoted or relegated come the end of the season. And we're also going to be comparing how much a team has risen or fallen in this table since the last international break as well, which I think is interesting. Make sure to get all your thoughts on the weekend down in the comments down below, your team's performances so far this season, but without any further ado, let's jump in. So starting out at the bottom of the table, we do have a new side making up the foot of the championship. That's Portsmouth, who, going off the Bookies relegation odds, are now the most likely side to be relegated come the end of the season. That's a fall of one place since last time. Promotion odds of 750 to 1 right now. Now it's quite interesting with Pompey. Before a ball had been kicked, they were the most fancied side of the three coming up to survive this season, but that's totally been flipped on its head. Obviously, the only championship club yet to win a match this season. I think their relegation odds probably took an absolute hammering when they shipped 6 goals in that midweek game against Stoke City. Got a point over the weekend against Oxford, but still chasing that first win. You can understand why they'd be bottom right now. 23rd in the table, the Bookies then have Cardiff. Now this is a fall of 2 places from the last international break. Cardiff were just outside the bottom 3 when we last looked into the relegation odds. That's no longer the case. They've got relegation odds right now of 1 to 1. Now for Cardiff, it's tough to make a definitive judgment on them before they hire their next permanent manager. That will have quite an influence on how a lot of outsiders view Cardiff and their survival chances this season, but so far this season, most people, based on performances, would probably have Cardiff and Portsmouth in their bottom 3. But I think that last relegation spot is a really tough one to call right now. Now, the Bookies currently have Plymouth in there with relegation odds of 11 to 8, but I think there's been some real signs of optimism from Plymouth recently. Their form at home park in particular, another win for them over the weekend there against Blackburn Rovers, Morgan Whittaker with the last minute dramatics, and as a result of their bump in form recently, they have been bumped up 2 places from last time. The Bookies still has them going down, but there's definitely a lot of shoots of optimism that weren't necessarily there 4 or 5 weeks ago, and that's definitely something to build on going into the next round of fixtures after this international break, I think. Just above the dotted line, the Bookies then have QPR with a fall of 8 places from last time, which is absolutely huge. They've now got relegation odds of 3 to 1. It's not been a great start to the season for QPR. There's no denying that. Just 1 win from 9 coming into this international break. They're without a win in their last 5 games. It was another defeat for them over the weekend away at Derby. They're a tough one to put your finger on right now. For the first 5 or so game weeks in particular, they felt like quite a tough nut to crack. They had quite a few tough fixtures which they walked away with a point from, but their form has really tailed off since that point, and there probably are quite a few disgruntled QPR fans right now. Obviously, they found themselves in a very similar situation last season, but with Marty Cifuentes in place from the get-go, after what was a fairly solid summer transfer window where I thought they picked up some good players. I thought that this would be a season where they really started to kick on, but that's not been the case, and like I say, 1 win from 9, that is relegation form. Coming in 20th, we've then got Oxford United. That's a bump up of 2 places for Des Buckingham's side since we last checked in on the Bookies relegation odds. They've moved up to 10 to 3 to be relegated this season. I think they've proven themselves to be a really solid outfit at this level, can definitely score goals, and have started to pick up a few more points away from home now as well. That was something that we said they probably need to learn how to do as the season goes on, but it's 3 draws on the bounce for Oxford. They've been a pretty tough side to beat so far this season, and I think a finish off around about 20th would represent a really solid season for them. 1 bad run of form or anything like that, and you know, a side like Oxford could easily be dragged into the relegation zone, but 9 games into the season, they're in the top half of the table and they're probably loving life right now. Coming in 19th place, we then have my side, Preston North End. We've actually not moved whatsoever in the Bookies overall table here. We're still in 19th position. That was the exact same position we were in when we last checked in on the Bookies odds. Promotion odds of 50 to 1. relegation odds of 7-2. I definitely think there's been a lot more optimism around the place since Paul Heckingbottom has come in, and while the wins so far this season have been fairly few and far between, I think we've been, generally speaking, a lot more of a solid outfit, and even unlucky in some matches to have not actually got more points on the board. The game over the weekend against Burnley, for example, I thought we were unlucky not to win. Had Emile Rees not been wrongly called for offside, I think we probably do go on to win that match. We could have won the one against Blackburn as well, despite being down to 10 men for so much of that game. With Heckingbottom in charge, as long as we don't get any ridiculous injury list or something like that, I'm pretty confident that he can steer us away from the relegation mix. Coming in 18th place, we then got Derby County. That's a bump up of 2 places from last time. Relegation odds of 5-1 as of recording. They're just such a solid outfit at Pride Park especially, aren't they? It was another win for them at home over the weekend, 2-0 against QPR. And while they're yet to properly get going in a lot of their away matches, it just feels like the amount of points they'll accumulate at home this season, that in itself could be enough to keep them up this year. An absolutely massive faller since last time has been Stoke City. They've fallen by 9 places in this Bookies table since the last international break. That's the biggest faller of any team on this entire list. Now, obviously, quite a lot has happened at Stoke City since the last international break. Obviously, the dismissal of Steven Schumacher, results performances have been very mixed so far this season. We saw real signs of optimism from Stoke in midweek as they smashed 6 goals past Portsmouth, and we started to see potentially the start of a bit of a partnership there between the likes of Tom Cannon and Sam Gallagher. But a goalless draw for them over the weekend against Swansea. I think they're going into the international break with a little bit more of a bounce this time, obviously with that win in midweek and the draw against Swansea over the weekend. But Stoke are a wildly unpredictable side right now, and it does feel like they are on a bit of a knife edge where they could go either way this season. Coming in 16th place, the Bookies then have Millwall with relegation odds of 15-2. Now, they have been lifted 2 places in this table since we last checked in on Neil Harris's side. They've been a little bit up and down so far this season. I think their last 3 results probably reflect that. A win against Preston, a loss against Cardiff, and then a draw against West Brom. I think if they do keep everyone fit this season, they will have too much to go down, but just not quite enough to properly kick up the table, and so a finish of around about 16th is probably quite realistic right now. Coming in 15th, we've then got Sheffield Wednesday. It does feel like the Owls have really started to get their act together in recent weeks after what was quite a slow start to the season after battering Plymouth on the opening day. Their last 3 results and performances have led to some real optimism, I think, within that fan base. Great win for them over the weekend, last minute against Coventry. Obviously, in recent weeks as well, they got that point away at Bristol City, beat West Brom at Hillsborough as well. If they can build on that momentum, there's no reason why they can't start to climb the table a little bit. Coming in 14th place, according to the bookies, it will be Swansea City. They've got promotion odds of 20-1, relegation odds of 11-1. They have been bumped up by 2 places since the last international break, and I think that's probably a fair reflection of Swansea so far this season. I think they could finish anywhere from sort of 16th to maybe as high as 9th perhaps. In their opening 9 matches, it's been 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses, so in and around that mid-table zone is probably what's been reflected in their performances and results so far this season. It's been a fairly similar story with Bristol City as well. The bookies have them to finish in 13th come the end of the season. They've got promotion odds of 16-1, relegation odds of 12-1. They've also been bumped up 2 places since the last international break as well. Generally speaking, they have been pretty draw heavy in their opening 9 fixtures. If they can break that glass ceiling above them, start to put together a bit more consistency, then who knows what's possible. But I think most people would probably have them down for a mid-table finish right now. Arguably the biggest cause for concern for any club coming into this international break is Luton Town, though. It was another defeat for Rob Edwards' men over the weekend against Sheffield United. They've moved down 2 places in this bookies table since the last international break. But I mean, going back to before a ball had been kicked, Luton were one of the 3 favourites to be promoted this season. So the fact they're down in 12th right now really speaks to their struggles. They've been wasteful in the final third. They're averaging less than a goal per game right now. They've conceded 15 in their opening 9 matches, and they've just not been able to string any consistency together whatsoever. That fan base is clearly disgruntled right now, as was seen by the full-time scenes with that away end and the sort of team and Rob Edwards coming over towards the end. You can understand why there are so many unhappy Luton fans right now. The way they're picking up points and performance at the moment, they don't even look like they're going to finish 12th in the table. Coming in 11th place, the bookies then have Watford, promotion odds of 18 to 1, relegation odds of 14 to 1. They've not moved in the bookies table whatsoever since we last did one of these videos. Thought Watford were quite poor when I saw them in the flesh when they came to Deepdale, but that was a bit of an off performance, I think, by Tom Cleverley's side. And the good thing about Watford right now is I think they do have bounce back ability within them, as seen over the weekend with that cracking result against Middlesbrough. Watford have lost 3 of their opening 9 matches, but they're yet to lose back-to-back games so far this season, which I think is quite a good trait to have when you have that sort of bounce back ability in a league like the Championship. Cleverley seems to be quite good at rallying the troops when a result goes against them. Now for Hull City, it wasn't an ideal result over the weekend, losing 4-0 against Norwich, but generally speaking there have been more positive vibes around Hull recently, and that's reflected in this table. They've been bumped up 7 places since the last international break, where the bookies now think they'll finish in and around 10th in the table. Promotion odds of 14 to 1 and relegation odds of 14 to 1. So they're just as likely right now, according to the bookies, to be promoted as they are relegated. They did quite well to put together 3 consecutive wins that really shot them up the table. But maybe that loss over the weekend against Norwich was a bit of a bump back down to reality and shows that there still is a bit of a bridge to gap between themselves and those clubs who will definitely be going for the top 6 this season. 9th in the table, we've then got Coventry. They've fallen by 2 places since last time. Every time we do one of these videos, it seems like Coventry gradually just fall down the table a little bit more. It just feels like we've had so many false dawns with this Cov side so far this season. I thought that maybe that result against Blackburn in midweek was going to be the real spark to sort of get their season going, but they can't follow up the following week. They go and lose against Sheffield Wednesday over the weekend. So listen, I still think there's so much quality within that Coventry squad, and as we've said countless times on the channel, we're sort of used to Coventry starting the season quite slowly and then growing into it as it goes on, but we're 9 games in right now and they've not really looked like the promotion outfit that I think a lot of people thought they might at the start of the campaign, but still a long way to go between now and the end of the season. But despite losing back-to-back games coming into this international break, Blackburn have actually been bumped up 1 place in this overall table. Promotion odds of 9 to 1, relegation odds of 20 to 1. At Ewood Park so far this season especially, they've been absolutely brilliant. You can't take anything away from Blackburn from that perspective. Away from home, I still think there are areas to improve. Obviously, it's back-to-back losses for John Eustace's side on the road. A bitterly disappointing one to lose that game over the weekend in the fashion they did so late on against Plymouth. But come the end of the season, I reckon Blackburn will most likely be somewhere in that mid-table pack. I don't think they quite have enough to go for the top 6 right now, but to have only lost 2 of your opening 9 matches, you can't have any grumblings about that really. In 7th place, the bookies have Norwich City, but I think Canaries fans will be feeling quite positive about the club right now, and I think there's every chance they go on and finish in the top 6. They're scoring a lot of goals at this moment in time. They've scored 12, I think, in their last 4 games now. Obviously, they battered Hull over the weekend, putting 4 goals past them. At Carrow Road especially, I think they've been really strong this season, yet to lose at home, and I think that's a really good trait to have. And obviously, their good form has been reflected in the bookies' odds. They have been bumped up 5 places since the last international break, and I think that by the time we reach the next international break, if Norwich continue performing as they have been recently, I think they could be bumped up a few more places. Coming in 6th in the table, the bookies then have West Brom. Really positive vibes around West Brom and their opening sort of 7 or so games of the season, but it does feel like they've let things slip recently going into this international break, and maybe that's been reflected here where they have been bumped down one place since the last international break. Without a win in their last 3, I thought that this weekend against Millwall was a decent chance to get back to winning ways, but in the end it was a bit of a frustrating one for all involved, finishing as a goalless draw in the end. Listen, a top 6 finish would still be a really positive campaign for West Brom, but I mean, maybe it was some people getting over carried away at the start of the season and things like that. With the way they actually started, they seemed like they could be top 2 contenders, and who knows, they could still be that. But I think maybe these last couple of weeks have exposed a few vulnerabilities within that side, perhaps. Albeit it's still been a really good start to the season, and they're currently 4th in the table, which every West Brom fan would have taken at the start of the campaign. In 5th place, we've then got Burnley, who have actually fallen by 4 places since the last international break. Now, generally speaking, results have still been fairly consistent for Scott Parker's side, but performance levels wise, I don't think Burnley have been particularly great recently, and I think a lot of fans would actually agree with that as well, obviously. I got to watch them over a full 90 minutes at Turf Moor over the weekend, where Preston played them this weekend. Didn't think they were great, to be honest with you. If anything, they probably got a little bit lucky to get a point from that match, given their decision, the offside that went against Preston in the first half. But it does feel like, in terms of chance creation, this squad is playing nowhere near its capabilities right now. I don't actually think they've scored a goal from open play, have they, in their last 3 matches, which is really poor considering the attackers and forward and creative options that Parker has at his disposal there. Listen, it's hard to be too harsh right now because they're currently 3rd in the table, and a real positive about this Burnley side so far this season has been their defensive record. They've been one of the strongest sides in the league so far this season in terms of keeping goals out, but it just feels like, in terms of performance levels, underlying data and the eye test, there's more that needs to come from this Burnley side before I'm properly convinced by them. 4th in the table, the Bookies then have Sheffield United. They've been bumped up 2 places since last time, with promotion odds of 7-4. Currently the only Championship side unbeaten this season. Really impressive, and a testament to Chris Wilder, I suppose. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt coming into this season from a Sheffield United perspective because of how disastrous last season was. They were starting this season with a point deduction, quite a bit of chaos behind the scenes relating to the takeover, and it was a complete squad overhaul. But despite all that and how many plates Wilder's been spinning this season, I think it's been a really positive start to the campaign. Defensively, they've been the best team in the league so far this season, having only conceded 3 goals in their opening 9 matches. Yes, they're not as free scoring as I think they probably want to be right now. That's something that they can improve with as the season goes on, but right now, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find many fans that wouldn't have Sheffield United maybe inside their top 2 in terms of end-of-season predictions. Coming 3rd in the table, the Bookies then have Sunderland, also with promotion odds of 7-4, but their relegation odds are superior to Sheffield United's, which is why they're 1 place higher in the table. Listen, it's been an absolutely fabulous start to the campaign for the Black Cats. They're top of the table in real life. Sunderland fans are loving life right now, I'm sure. I think they've reacted really well from that loss against Watford the other week, with a win against Derby and then that draw on Friday night against Leeds United, albeit they were handed a huge amount of fortune to get back into that game, with Meslier basically throwing the ball into the back of his own net. But there's a lot to like about this Sunderland side right now. It's a youthful core of players who all seem to be maturing at a similar rate. They've added a decent amount of experience in the summer transfer window as well. It just feels like quite a nicely balanced squad right now, which isn't something that we've always been able to say about Sunderland in recent years. I think the new management team's come in and done really well, and when a club as big as Sunderland gets some momentum behind them, my God, that can take you a long way. I do think this is a bold shout by the Bookies, though. Predicted to finish in 2nd come the end of the season. They've got Middlesbrough with promotion odds of 5-4. That's a bump up of 1 place since the last international break. Now, in real life, Middlesbrough are still occupying a spot outside of the top 6, but the Bookies has obviously seen enough to continue to back them for one of the top promotion spots. Now, in terms of underlying data, the eye test for Middlesbrough so far this season, they have been one of the best teams in the league so far this season. They've created more chances than anyone else so far this season. Defensively, in terms of the chances they actually give away to the opposition, they tend to be quite decent as well. That's not always translated into consistent results though, as seen over the weekend. It was a loss against Watford, but the bookies is still holding firm that Borough will be in the automatic promotion mix come the end of the season. Middlesbrough fans, if you had to call it right now, where do you think you're finishing at the end of the season? But coming in and winning the championship, still according to the bookies, it will be Leeds United. By far the most fancied side to win the league this season. They've got promotion odds of 4-11, and when checking their relegation odds on Sky Bet, Sky wasn't even offering a market for that. They're so confident that Leeds will be in one of these top positions come the end of the season. They've not changed whatsoever in terms of Leeds still being top. I think that's been the case since the very start of the season, actually. Obviously, over the weekend, it was a very frustrating one to have not gone to Sunderland and have picked up all 3 points, which would have been the case had it not been by that awful blunder from Meslier. But as of recording, they're averaging 1.77 points per game, which if they were to average over the entire season, would see them finishing the campaign with 82 points. I think that if they're going to win the championship this season, they're going to need to up those levels. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to get your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think the bookies have been too kind or too harsh on your side? Do let me know. But other than that though guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.